Mission Pro Wrestling, the symbol of excellence in women's sports entertainment.
I love that song. Love rocking out to the official Mission Pro song. Hey, everybody, this is Mindrunner. Welcome to Mission Pro Spotlight. I'm so stoked about my special guest tonight. I don't know. She might be as bigger mark for wrestling, for women's wrestling, than I am. I don't know. We're going to figure that out tonight. I know that's a hard thing to do, but I'm super excited to see everybody in the chat. Super excited to see Brian, Michael May, Chris. What's going on, my brother? And I did see Pepe. Hope the leg is getting better there, brother. But my guest at this time, yes, she is known as the most captivating woman in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to introduce to you my guest at this time.
By God, it's the most captivating woman in the world, Julie Cutler.
By God, Julie.
Oh my goodness, what an intro. Thank you so much. I wasn't expecting all of that.
Well, we had to roll the red carpet out for the most captivating woman in the world.
Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I was on one of the Mission Pro podcasts several months ago, and I've been very antsy to get back. I absolutely love what you guys are doing. I'm very passionate about women's wrestling and also just very passionate about what you guys do, which is taking some of the top independent prospects in women's wrestling, really from all over the country, and sort of gathering them into one place. That's like my dream. So I'm super appreciative to be here and excited to mark out with you, as you were saying.
Absolutely. I mean, we're huge supporters of women's wrestling. Mission Pro has become kind of the symbol of excellence for women's sports entertainment. It's that mark. You go through Mission Pro, it's kind of like a rite of passage, and there's been so many superstars that are killing it in the mainstream wrestling now that have been our Mission Pro's own homegrown. But first, before we get into all the marking out, which I'm dying to do because there's so much going on in the world of women's wrestling, especially today, this day and age. We won't talk about where we are now versus where we came from. But let's get everybody who didn't get a chance to get to know you before, let's get a chance to get to know you through something that, again, I totally did not rip off from Sean Evans and Hot Ones. This is totally not his idea. This is a unique idea. It's called Insta Insanity, and I hope you are okay that I went through and found some select tasteful images from your Instagram, and we want to get the story behind each of these images. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get to know Julie, the most captivating woman in the world with the most captivating Instagram. It's time for Insta Insanity.
By God, it's Insta Insanity.
All right, Insta Insanity. The stories behind the compelling Instagram photos. You know, of course, with the most captivating woman in the world. Right off the bat, how did this moniker come about? I mean, I'm not doubting it at all. I'm sure it's fact, but just curious where that came from.
Actually, I do have kind of a funny story behind the moniker. So I have actually had this as like my brainchild for a number of years. And the reason why is because I went to a holiday party for one of my old jobs, one of my old shoot jobs. And this was probably, how old? I was like early 20s, because I was like relatively fresh out of college. And so the work party that I went to, my company allowed you to bring like a +1. And so one of the guys that I worked with brought like one of his close friends. And none of us had like ever met this guy before. This was the first time I'd ever met this guy. I was at this work party. And he just had like a really big personality. Like for somebody that didn't even work there, and for somebody that was just coming as a plus one, he had like a huge personality. And I remember like he got up and he like did like a little Irish jig in front of everybody at the
Nice.
party. And he was like making a lot of effort to come and talk to me. And at one point, he had told one of our mutual friends that worked there, that was at the party, that I was, quote unquote, the most captivating woman he had ever met in his life.
Wow.
Which I thought was kind of flattering. And so I
Very.
put that, and I put that in the memory bank, and I was like, I'm gonna hold on to that and use that. But I liked the idea because number one, it was very flattering, it was very complimentary. And number two, I felt like it was kind of different than anything that anybody else uses. Like you hear a lot of people going by like I'm the princess of Staten Island, I'm the princess of this, I'm the princess of that, I'm the queen, I'm the goddess, all these things. And I was like, how do you just trump all of these different like complimentary monikers? And I was like, well, this is how you do it. You just have to say like, I'm the most captivating woman in the world.
It works.
You can't get any higher than that.
And captivating works. It sums up, everybody, you could be a princess, but captivating, it's like, why is she captivating? I'm intrigued. I want to know more.
That's the other thing. You can be there could be a lot of princesses. You could be the princess of, one place. You could be the princess of another place. You could be, and you see that a lot in wrestling. There's a lot of princesses. Like you said,
there's even La Princesa, the MPW champion.
Yes, who is super, super talented. And I see her a lot in the NWA as well. And I do want to put over what she is doing because I feel like she has come such a long way in such a short period of time. Like her career has just skyrocketed in such a short period of time, which I think is so amenable. And I think that at this day and age, like that's what you got to do. You got to put the rocket on and just go for it. But like you said, there's a lot of princesses in this business. So how do I do something different? How do I do something that no one else has done before? And so that was kind of the moniker that I had carried in my head for a number of years now.
Oh, I love it. It's fantastic. It fits you very well. And being so captivating, it attracts people like some of these superstars. Tell us about this encounter.
Yes. So this was actually in Philadelphia during Mania Week. And this was like the craziest 48 hours of my life. So I was in Philly for a couple of days because I had gotten invited to do interviews for the Title Match Network at the 2300 Arena on Friday because they had several events for Battleground Pro Wrestling going on that Friday. There were 2 shows, one that was like an independent show, and then they had a block party in the middle of the afternoon where they had a lot of different superstars doing meet and greets, and then they had in the evening a tribute to Extreme 2, which was an ECW tribute show where they had a lot of the ECW originals. So that was my plan for Friday. And so I drove down from Massachusetts on Thursday. It was about a little over a 4-hour drive maybe. So I get to Philadelphia in the afternoon. I get all settled in, and I have, of course, there's friends there. There's everybody in wrestling is in Philly for Mania Week. So I'm kind of, making plans with people. Where am I going to go this evening? What am I going to do? And I ended up actually right before this picture was taken. There was an event happening maybe a couple blocks away. It was called the Remix Rumble, which was like a wrestling themed nightclub, essentially.
Oh, wow.
And so I had some friends that were going to that, and they usually have guest DJs from what I understand. And their guest DJ in Philly, it was Mark Henry, which was so
cool. What? Wow.
And my friends and we had a connection where we were actually able to get up on stage with Mark Henry.
Oh, no.
So
that's awesome.
We were hanging out in the back of the stage. We were dancing. And then Mark Henry saw one of my friends and I, and he was like, "Oh, I want you guys to like go up and dance in the front of the stage." So I shook his hand, and of course, his hand is like as big as like my entire
I was
face
gonna say big meat
because it's
hook.
Mark Henry.
Yeah.
So I shake hands, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like thank you so much. It's an honor. Like this is my entire childhood flashing in front of my eyes. I'm dancing on stage with Mark Henry, and also there were some other folks there, like Tajiri was there, who is such a sweet man.
Oh, that's so cool.
Such a sweetheart.
No green mist.
No green mist this time. So we go and we dance on stage at the Mark Henry concert. And after that, I was still really hungry because I had driven all day and I kind of had like snacks that I had brought with me, but like I just hadn't really eaten a lot. So after that, like I hung out there for a little bit and then I told my friends, I was like, I'm hungry. I really want to go eat something. So we ended up sneaking out and we went back to the hotel restaurant because it just seemed like it was something, quick and easy and accessible. And that was the same hotel where a number of the talent were staying. So that was how this picture was taken because I ran into Liv and CJ and got chatting with them because they actually train periodically at the Dungeon 2.0 with Natalia and TJ Wilson. And I have a number of friends that train there. So we kind of got talking about that. I have a close friend actually from Massachusetts who trains there named Chico Adams. And he's a close family friend of mine. And then a couple other friends, one young gentleman that I work with, his name is Brad Baylor. He is stationed up in Connecticut, but will go down to train with them periodically. And then a couple other friends as well that are local to the area. One of my good friends, Ariel Dominguez, trains with them. So we had like things in common to sort of chat about. And
this looks like quite the trio, though. I gotta say, this is
I
a
think
powerful
so
trio.
Too. Well, also like I have been connected with CJ on Instagram for like a number of years now, and so I feel like people on social media sometimes can be really nasty, especially when you're in the public eye. And so that was another thing we were kind of chatting about. I was like, I always try to leave like positive, uplifting comments on your things because I just think about that sometimes, like especially when you have millions of followers, like you probably get a lot of bots and like kooky stuff in your comment section. And then you get a lot of people that just like forget that you're a human being and feel like they have the authority to go on your page and just say whatever. And it's almost like they don't expect you to actually read it. But
they're just doing something for themselves. They're making themselves feel better because they don't feel good about themselves. Yeah, and then it's something too. It's like I've always my grandfather had a great saying that the emptiest cans make the most noise. It's probably 5% of your comments are these terrible things, but when you have 10,000 comments, 5% of that is 5% of 10,000. So and you're gonna see that it piles up. After a while, and it's hard to ignore, because you'll see all these positive comments, and you see that one said, "Oh, I guess you had too many donuts yesterday," or "Oh, boy, I guess you got wrinkles on your face." You see that, and now you're starting to go, "Do I? What?"
Right. And it's always like it's stuff like that too. It's like super nitpicky. Like, obviously, if you look at a lot of people in the professional wrestling business, it's a very aesthetic business. And a lot of these people are like super fit and beautiful and, do a lot to maintain a certain appearance and a certain lifestyle. So then for other people to go on and nitpick things like that, it's just silly. So we kind of chatted about that a little bit, chatting about
Right.
I like donuts too, Brian.
Donuts. I'm not a donut hater either. So yes, long live the donuts.
Actually, donut place really quickly that I would love to put over in Texas, Urban Donut. If you have
Urban Donut,
before, they have the best red. I think it was like a red velvet donut, red velvet cheesecake style donut. It was like the best that I've ever had in my entire life. When I went and I visited Dallas within the past couple of years, that was very high on my list. But Yeah, that's pretty much the story behind that interaction. Just kind of talking shop about the business a little bit and talking about some, uh,
Trolls,
Instagram trolls
trolls on
and
Instagram. Well, and you
chatting
got
about
to get
singing.
the sacrifices that the wrestlers make, just not just, for the learning the moves, but also, the physical training to keep themselves fit. And that must also carry over to another profession another field
Ah,
that you were involved in. And so what are the similarities? Now here we have, this is the Miss Berkshire County.
yes.
Tell
So
us about this.
this was in 2022 when I competed in the Miss Massachusetts USA beauty pageant.
Mm-hmm.
And funny story about this. So the Miss USA organization actually used to have an age limit on competing. And so at the time you had to be, and I think they've changed it a couple of times over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it used to be 26 at one point, and then it was 28. And they actually just removed this past year, they removed all age limits from competing. So when I did this competition, I thought that this was like my last opportunity to be in a pageant. I never grew up as like a pageant girl. This was something that I decided to take on myself later in life as something that I've just always wanted to do. And so when I did this, I thought that this was my last pageant opportunity, but now I've had all kinds of ideas floating in my head. At some point when I'm not like super busy with the wrestling and other things, if I ever have the time, I would love to maybe circle back to this at
There
some
you
point
go.
in the future. But this was a couple years ago, and there was a lot of preparation that went into this. I actually started preparing in the fall of 2021 because the pageant was in March of 2022, and I had signed up for it that October prior. So once I signed up for the pageant, that point, like, I didn't know a lot about how to work out properly. I had been a dancer for a number of years, and so like I'd always
That's
been
cool.
yeah, thank you. I'd always been fairly active, but there was still a lot that I didn't know about, like weightlifting and progressive overload, and then from the dieting standpoint, understanding macros and things like that. So I signed up with a personal trainer and that fall, who I actually still work with to this day. It's been like a couple of years now, and I just fell so in love with it that I didn't want to let her go. And she's one of my closest friends now, my personal trainer, Elena. And so I started doing training with her a couple of times a week. She developed a nutrition plan for me, which sort of got like more and more elaborate over time as it got closer to my pageant, because I initially didn't start out with like a ton of background information myself on nutrition. And so she kind of like spoon fed it to me little by little in ways that I understood until I sort of captured the full picture. So, we started with a nutrition plan, and then I also started, because she's also a certified life coach,
Oh,
I started
wow.
doing coaching with her. And she had previously competed herself, not in beauty pageants, but as a fitness competitor, as a bikini pro. I believe she had her NPC pro card. And so she had accomplished a lot herself in achieving her own body goals. I thought that she was the perfect person to help me, just seeing that she was somebody that clearly knew how to achieve results herself and wasn't just like touting around
Yeah,
information.
you've got to walk the walk. If you're going to be a good coach, you got to walk the walk. Now, we
Exactly.
have a super chat. So we got to
Oh,
pause for a super chat. And Brian asks, who would win in a pageant, you or Nahir Robles?
oh, so funny story.
Yep.
I've worked with her before. I've done ring announcing for her before, and she is beautiful. I think it would be tough.
Yeah.
That's a tough call. Also, the other thing is too that you have to think about with pageants, and this is something that I was like just beginning to get at, was it's a beauty pageant, but there's a lot that goes into it. Like there's
Yeah.
a lot that goes into your walk on stage, your presentation. I mean, you could be as physically beautiful as you want, but if you don't carry yourself in such a way that conveys that energy to the audience. It's like in wrestling. It's like you could be a great technical professional wrestler, but do you carry yourself? Do you have that it factor that really conveys an energy to the audience that people want to know more about? So it's like there's this whole other aspect of it besides just physical beauty. But I love Nair Robles. I think that she's absolutely gorgeous. She's very talented. She travels a lot. I've seen her winning championships all over the place. So I think it'd be close. I think she and I have different strengths. So I think it would be very dependent on what those specific judges are looking for. Because it's different all the time. You can have one panel of judges that loves you, and you could have another panel that's just looking for something totally different. So
absolutely. Well, let's go to the next couple. Let's do quick answers because I want to get to the marking out with you too. But I mean, again, there's stories behind all of these. This is I saw this
stories.
Yeah, these are I just noticed you're a big fan of different style nails. You even coordinate your nails with your workout set. I think that's pretty rad. Or you've some artwork.
That was an accident, but that was like a happy accident.
Now, I have a quick question. If if you are a fan of, or almost a fanatic when it comes to like coloring your nails and fingernails, does that make you a nail file? Is that what
Well, I do. I actually, when I was younger, so super quick, I used to play violin, and I never ever had long nails when I was younger. So this is something I used to paint them all the time, just myself. I would just do it, my little nail polish at home. This is something that I kind of picked up at an older age, maybe like once I graduated from college. I started going and getting my nails done. And then it was like, once you get them done by someone else and you start keeping them up like that, like it's really hard to stop.
Yeah.
So, but what I do, and also again, aesthetic, wrestling being an aesthetic business, I like to keep them up. And if I know that I have a show coming up and I know what I'm going to be wearing for the show, I'll try to do my nails to match the show outfit, which actually can't really see them great right now. I have red and gold right now, which matched my last show outfit.
That looks pretty rad. Yeah, I know Aubrey Edwards does that too. I think she'll try to she'll have some kind of theme, or whether like a sports team or something like that.
I have seen that.
Really quickly, okay.
My food story. You got.
Here's the thing. The phone eats first. I think people get a bad rap taking pictures of their food before they eat it. People say that's annoying. I don't believe so, because for one, that's part of the artistry of being a chef is presentation.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And I think it's a work of art. Even if you're just throwing on some brisket, but like it's a work of art, and I think it deserves to be photographed. And I'm sorry, my mouth is watering looking at the street corn over here.
I'm hungry right now. You got me a bad time. But these also, I will say I don't always take pictures. Like if my food looks like anything else that I would eat on a regular basis, I don't always take pictures of my food. But if I'm like at a restaurant and if it looks really really appetizing, if it looks special, if I'm traveling or something like that, and I go out to eat somewhere and it looks really good, then I'll take pictures of it.
So far, we've talked donuts and we've talked street corn. We're starting to get a theme here.
And these, I could tell you where every single one of these came from, and I probably have a lot of them tagged actually. But that one in the upper left right now, the spaghetti and meatballs, that's from like one of my favorite restaurants of all time. It's a small chain called Delmonico's. They have restaurants in New York State, and I think they also have one in Orlando, Florida, randomly. But
is that angel hair pasta? Is that your favorite?
Yes. Well, the thing is, I do too. I find that it's hard to find. Maybe it's just like the area that I'm in. I don't know. I find that like a lot of places don't have like the really, really thin angel hair pasta.
Yeah.
It's a little bit thicker. So anytime I can find that like super, super skinny angel hair, it just touches my heart, and that's one of my favorites. Exactly.
That's my favorite. That's my preferred. I ask angel hair all the time. That's a meatball. Those are meatballs too. I
They
hate when you just get the little
are.
tiny meatball. That's a boom. The meatballs, but like the meal with.
Exactly.
I like a meatball with some noodles with some angel hair pasta on the
And a
side.
lot of
You know, with
sauce.
it.
You can't skip on the sauce.
No, can't skip on the sauce. All right, I hope you don't mind, but
I don't mind.
this really warmed my heart. I read your story with this, and I just want to say before you get into the story, the look look of pride on her face and you, like, this is somebody that just seems so stinking proud of her daughter. And
You.
I think that this is a look that I think we all hope we get with our parents, for the most part. And I think that to me, this really warmed my heart. And then I read your story behind it. And so just if you can tell us a little bit about this magnificent woman that you're hugging here.
So this is my mom. Her name was Ellen Cutler. Unfortunately, the reason that I posted this picture was because she passed in March of 2022. She actually passed just shortly after I competed in the Miss Massachusetts USA pageant. But she lived a hell of a life, let me tell you. This woman overcame chronic leukemia as well as ovarian cancer. Ultimately, she had a very hard-fought battle with ovarian cancer, which she actually did go into remission from once back in 2020.
Wow.
And so she put up an absolute hell of a fight. And she was like one of the most kind-hearted, vibrant people that you will ever meet. She was kind of a little bit of like a closeted stage mom. She was the one that got me into dance and music, I would say, at a very young age. I was always like a performer in some form or fashion from a very young age. And so my mom signed me up for dance lessons when I was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I started playing the violin. I remember wanting to play the violin myself, and I think she was probably, between my two parents, the one that was like really supportive of getting me on board with that. So I started playing the violin at the age of 6. And she was also very supportive of my beauty pageant journey before she had passed. And she actually, although she wasn't able to be there in person at the event, she did watch it online. Because
that got me big time. When you said that she was able to watch your most recent one, that's so cool that she was still able to do that.
Yeah, and I do think that I get a lot of my personality traits from her as well. I'm definitely very much like a mixture of both of my parents. Oh, thank you, Brian. Brian is also commenting on my nephew, who I share a lot, like with my close personal friends. I'm very, very close with him as well, and he's also kind of catching on. He's only 4 right now, but he's kind of catching on to like what I do in wrestling. He hasn't been to any of my shows yet, but I think he's kind of getting close to the age where at some point in the relatively near future, we'll probably
get him running the ropes a little bit.
Yeah. We practice his entrance announcement at home. He has like his own little title belts that
that's so cool.
Gotten him over time. And so I have like this window in my house. It's kind of like a bay window that's almost like a little stage. So he'll come out and I'll announce him to the ring. So we're practicing. But we're super close. And he actually introduced me within the past couple of weeks. He introduced me to somebody as quote unquote Julie Cutler from wrestling. So
yeah, well, hey, there you go. From wrestling's Julie Cutler.
And actually, so we had a show this past weekend for a new promotion up here in Massachusetts called Rebel Spirit Pro Wrestling, which went extremely well. And while we were setting up from the show, I have a t-shirt that I made. It says, "It's me, Julie, from wrestling." That was what I was wearing around as we were doing ring crew and setting up the lights and everything. So,
well, I like this t-shirt. Your favorite's favorite. I like that one. And that's on sale, available now
Yes, it is.
ProWrestlingTees.com. Get yours.
Yes,
But,
it is. This is on Pro Wrestling Tees. It was designed by, there's a graphic designer. If you go on Instagram, they're called Over by Design. And they've actually done t-shirts for Mariah May and Trish Stratus as well, which is how I found them.
That's
And
so
they
cool.
did a phenomenal job. They also made this graphic to go along with the t-shirt graphic that they created.
We're looking forward. Get this one, and then once you buy this one, hopefully we'll see Julie from wrestling as another t-shirt down the line. That would be pretty cool. And
Yeah.
maybe Julie from Mission Pro Spotlight. Maybe that'll be a good.
That'll be next.
That'll be the next one. That'll be the next one that we do. Awesome stuff. I'm so excited, Chad. And you could see just going through your stories, I can see how the passion for women's wrestling is in you. Just from your mom being such a badass and being such a strong person, and just the pageantry, if you will, of wrestling. There's so many parallels between the two.
There
And
really are.
yeah, it's all performance, it's hype, it's getting everything up. And I would speaking of, there was so much going on just this week in women's wrestling, and there's so many tangents we can go off of. But one of the things we like to do, because when you, like you said earlier, like you had your conversation with CJ, there's so much negativity. I mean, anytime anybody, Triple H sneezes and everybody's or Liv Morgan slips in the ring and or what's her Taya Valkyrie goes to Ring of Honor and it's but we like to promote the positivity and uplifting, because there's so much of that needs to be celebrated, and that's why we like to spread the women's wrestling news. Get ready. I'm no Ron Burgundy, but and but you could definitely give Veronica Corningstone a run for her money. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time for women's wrestling news. All right, women's wrestling news. It's time for Julie and Mindrunner to mark out about all the cool stories of the week. And this is just a taste, as Daddy Magic says. It's just a taste. Just a taste.
Yeah.
Just a taste of the wrestling news. All right, first up, we've had some incredible matches, both at NXT Battleground, last night at Dynamite, as well as on Collision, and a lot of cool storylines developing. First of all, we've got Lola Vice defeated Shayna Baszler in a essentially like an MMA kind of underground style match, knocked her out, if you will. And, one of the things I really enjoyed about that match is to make a sports entertainment version of an MMA match. To me, seems, again, not being in the ring doing this, but it seems extremely harder. It seems harder to do than like a regular wrestling match, because you're having to simulate a real MMA match without doing real strikes. I mean, that's got to be incredible.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point with that. The good thing is that I think for this match, they had the right two women for the job.
Yeah.
And that's something that I loved about this was, number one, having a match like this and doing something that's a little bit different, having a little bit of a different stipulation, it helps mix up the show. It helps because, after a while, like you have, singles match after singles match, title after title. It's something different. It's something refreshing, helps mix up the atmosphere of the show. It was fitting for the venue that they had at the Apex in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. And again, you have both Lola Vice and Shayna Baszler, who come from MMA backgrounds, and especially for Lola Vice, who is still a part of NXT and who's still relatively new to the world of wrestling, really, because I think she was signed, was it the fall of 2022, if I remember?
I think so, yeah. It wasn't long ago at all. Yeah,
I feel like I remember the class that she was a part of. I remember when they shared all of those posts on the WWE recruit page for everybody that was a part of that class. I want to say it was the fall of 2022. And so Obviously, she has a thick MMA background, but she is still relatively new to the world of wrestling. The great thing about her is that because she's already a public figure, she already has, appeal on social media. She already has a fan base that she can help pull into this wrestling world. And by having her incorporate her MMA background, you're speaking to her strengths, and you're also potentially helping to pull in a slightly different demographic of people who may know her from her MMA career, her MMA background, and may see this and may kind of want to continue to follow what she's doing, especially if they see that WWE is amenable to going outside of their comfort zone and doing something like this. So I think that it was a smart idea all around. I also think that the way that they booked it over the course of several weeks was smart in the sense that I feel like they still made Shayna Baszler look strong. They didn't put her in a situation where she was going to go under to Lola Vice right away just to put Lola over. I think that everything that they've done over the course of the past several weeks with Natalya and Carmen and Shayna and Lola all together and kind of using different combinations of different people and working the story in different ways allowed a lot of different people to look good and get their shine in, while ultimately giving Lola sort of like the victory that mattered at the
giving
end.
Her the spotlight.
Yeah.
As in Mission Pro Spotlight. But exactly right. I agree. I think and for a couple of things. One, I think this is the Shayna Baszler I wanted when she first got called up to the main roster.
I agree.
I think this is the Shayna Baszler we should have had. They tried to make her a vampire or something at first, and I don't know what was going on. I don't know what was going on with that. But I thought, and I feel like this really and Lola going over the way, like you said, where Shayna didn't go down, and this also had a MMA feel to it before going into it. I really liked that this was different. It's all about variety. I thought it was fantastic, especially the arena that they were in.
Yes.
And of course, that was such a cool moment. And Shayna didn't look bad. In fact, I liked how she kind of came to. She started trying to fight the refs, and it was like one of those MMA moments. And I hope we see more of that again. And Lola has really risen on my stock, with that match. Another person that has risen. I mean, when she was in the Indies, she already had my heart. But and still Roxanne Perez and still NXT champion. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the way that Jordynne Grace was brought in to take on Roxanne, and just how they could have just made her come in and just get squashed because it's another company, and perhaps the other guy that used to run WWE, who's kind of out of the picture. We don't need to talk about him much, but now that he's out of the picture, it seems like they really honored TNA's champion. Jordynne Grace came in like a champion, and I felt like this match wasn't just granted Roxanne going over, I don't think it made Jordynne as the TNA champion look bad. What were your thoughts?
No, I agree with you, and I love that WWE has become more open, particularly in the past year or two, to doing these sort of like collaborations with TNA, and it makes me really curious for the future to see what kind of other possibilities there are. I feel like some people have been kind of teasing here and there, like, oh, well, maybe you'll see me back in WWE. Like some people that left WWE went to TNA, and I was like, oh, maybe you'll see me back there soon in this capacity, which would be kind of interesting. But I agree. I also just wanted to speak a little bit to Roxanne Perez's growth in general, because when she first came on board with NXT, there was a little bit of weird booking with her, I feel like early on, that I wasn't a fan of, and it's still hard to like get out of my memory banks a little bit. I just think partially with the way that she won the NXT Women's Championship the first time. I just felt like I didn't get the story build that I wanted. Yeah. And I think that there were outside circumstances that sort of affected that. But
I don't know what you mean, pal.
Yeah. But for example, when she won the NXT Women's Championship the first time, it was like I felt like they started hyping her up to be in a story where she would eventually win, but then it just happened very abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she lost it, after she lost it the first time, I just feel like there was a lot of weird storytelling around that time that I didn't feel made her look strong. I feel like they
make a very good point.
Yeah, like I feel like they were booking her in such a way where like she was having like Indy Hartwell was like bullying her backstage. And I was like, why is everybody so mean to this girl? I was like, there's literally no explanation. I was like, everybody just like speaks to her in a very demeaning way. And there's no explanation as to why. And I just felt like it, number one, it didn't make a lot of sense. Number two, I didn't like the timing of all of that happening. Number three, I felt like it just made her character look weak for really no good reason. Like, I don't really feel like there was any payoff of that. And then eventually, I feel like they got this idea in mind to start making her sort of like a badass and like making her sort of hard. And almost a little bit like what they're doing with Fallon Henley right now. A little bit of like this. I do too. A little bit of this, like, I'm not going to let people walk all over me thing anymore that she's really leaned into. And I feel like the more that she leans into that, the better she gets. And I'm glad that they finally got that right with her, because there's just this period in time, like earlier in her NXT run, that I can't get out of my head, where she wasn't even on TV for a while, which I now she's.
I remember when Tesha Price was in AEW. That's when I first saw her, and I was like, "Oh, this is good. This is somebody that's going to be a star." And then, the Fallon Henley persona just really fits. She's, I think now, I'd really quickly, Pepe, what's up, dude? Hope the leg's doing very well. Jordan Grace's ear, I guess she had an earring that got caught on one of Roxanne's things, and it got tore. That's why I don't wear earrings anymore myself. I kind of stopped doing that. But I can't imagine, Moxley wears an earring sometimes to the ring, and I can't imagine wearing an earring. I do want to we can get to a couple of stuff below a later time, but I want to talk about new NXT just really quickly, because we can probably get to that in a separate thing. But Kaylani Jordan winning the NXT Battleground, and she is now the new North American Women's Champion. I like that they're adding more women's titles. People groan when they're adding new titles, but I don't think there's enough women's titles out there.
Well, the thing that I like about this one in particular is I feel like they have a lot more options as opposed to when they tried to do the women's tag titles. I think the problem when they tried to do the tag titles is it's not even necessarily that they didn't have enough tag teams. I do think that it's harder with tag teams because obviously you're pairing two people together, and that sort of cuts your roster in half in a way, in terms of people that are eligible to sort of have matches against each other and ultimately win the championships. So having a singles championship gives you a little bit more leeway in terms of who you're able to use and involve. But also, I feel like previously WWE and both NXT and on the main roster had kind of a bad habit of taking established tag teams and breaking them up. So after a while, it felt like some of the tag teams that in my brain made sense were no longer together. It felt like they were taking two wrestlers who like may or may not have even been friends and saying, you're a tag team now.
Yeah.
Which sometimes can work if they sort of have the ability to develop that tag team mentality with one another. Like, I guess if you do have two people that are already close friends and they work well together and they're able to sort of build, their gimmicks around each other a little bit. You get some scenarios that work, but it felt a lot like we were just taking two wrestlers and putting them together for the sake of having a tag team, and then they would switch them all the time, and it just felt very inconsistent to me. So I didn't love them getting rid of those championships, but it felt like they were kind of inevitably driving themselves in that direction, just with the lack of like steady tag teams. And so I think at least with the North American Women's Championship, you have a lot of options, people who are sort of in that mid-card to upper mid-card slot, people that they're good and deserve opportunities. Now you have something else for them to chase after other than just the top tier championship.
And and you make a very good point, and this was mentioned earlier in the chat. I was trying to find the question talking about, are there any women tag teams? It's hard. There's a need for strong female tag teams, definitely in the independent scene. Super excited, by the way, this Saturday at June 15th, Mission Pro Wrestling, the King Bees, Danny B and Charity King are not only the MPW champions, they're also the NWA champions. They're taking on a new team of the Sisters of Destruction, Nova Phoenix and Morgan Mercy, two of the biggest, most badass women in the planet, and they've now formed a team very much like how Kane and The Undertaker formed a team. And I see that. I hope we get more of that. I mean, we have Renegade Twins. Unfortunately, it was fortunate that Maddie Rinkowski went on to become Ren Sinclair, but that broke up Bougie Reality with her and Riche Chanel. But you've got, and there's Blonde Force Trauma out there. There's some tag teams, but it's difficult to have a tag team at the NXT level, and because you're constantly calling people up, and you may call up one tag team member another. But when you get to that WWE, and I hope and pray we get tag teams in AEW for women's tag teams, but that's the level where you can start to form those, because there's stories that go with it. I mean, a Saraya Harley Cameron tag team makes sense because they're together. Ty J works great because Ty Mello and Anna J are together. We're gonna do a quick swerve. I want to come back to the news, but I do want to talk about. I actually want to present our women's our Warrior of the Week this week is actually somebody that we just talked about, Kaylani Jordan. I kind of spoiled the gimmick there by pressing the wrong button, but anyways, surprise, it's Kaylani Jordan. Surprise! Rookie year. She was also named rookie. I think she was Pro Wrestling Illustrated, one of the rookies of the year. Her rookie year, of course, 2020. Even though she wrestled in 2022, I don't count that one match, that one battle royal. I'm counting 2023 was her rookie year. 63 matches in a year and a half. 25 years old. And new and first ever NXT Women's Champion at Battlegrounds. And what a way to win that match as well. This is somebody that is really, I think we need to definitely keep an eye on. Do you have any initial thoughts on Kaylani?
Yeah, so quick question. The 63 matches, is that including like NXT live events?
Yes. Well? Yeah. Okay. And I actually got that from Cage Match. So that's.
Oh, okay. So they keep everything.
I went through. I think they had the live. I think they put the live events in there too. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of thoughts on this match. I thought she was an interesting but good choice. And the things that I like about Kaylani Jordan, I do think that she has kind of this like innocent baby face appeal that I think is kind of nice for like an inaugural champion. I think that she is somebody who will represent the belt well. And I think that anytime you're launching a new championship, there's something about like that first title holder that kind of like sets the stage for everybody to come. And so I think that she has a good persona for that. There were a lot of interesting options in terms of people that you had in the match. I think that there were a lot of very deserving people in the match, which is why I didn't really have a set outcome in my mind going into the match, because honestly, I thought that there were a number of good choices. I know that we brought up Fallon Henley before, who was previously Tasha Price when she was wrestling independently. And I know you had also mentioned she had been utilized on AEW Dark a number of times. And I know that when she was wrestling independently, she was somebody that was very well received on the independent scene. And she did a really good job of building a foundation for herself. And when she got to NXT, at first, I will admit, I wasn't 100% sure about like the little character change that they gave her, but I think that it worked well for her, because I do feel like there's a level of authenticity to it where she pulls it off very well. If they had given her something that like I didn't feel like went with who she actually is in real life, like say they were like, oh, like you're an alien now. I don't know. If they gave her,
you're
for something else that didn't authentic. authentic.
That's interesting you say that, because JR was in a recent interview. He actually said the very same thing. He was talking about Steve Austin, and he said how that it was talking about how that was his real. No, it actually wasn't JR. It was an old Gene Okerlund thing that he had mentioned, where he was watching. That he said that when he was stunning Steve Austin, he was just kind of mid. He wasn't who he really was. But when he became the Stone Cold Steve Austin, it was an enhanced version of who he really is, this beer drinking, hunting guy. And I think that's important. You listen to like a Moxley or a Eddie Kingston promo. It's a enhanced version of who they are. Exactly. I mean, I think that's very important. And so perhaps Fallon, that's what she's finding her groove because of that.
That's how I feel too. I feel like some of these gimmicks that they give people in an environment like that, where you have writers that are giving you things, it can be very hit or miss, because like with her, I feel like what they wanted her to lead into, the gimmick that she has now, I do feel like there's a level of authenticity to it where it seems like she's grown into it really well. She looks amazing. She now that she's doing this more of a heel character where it's Fallon comes first, I think that she's growing into that really well.
Yeah.
Too, so I love that for her. I love Sol Ruca. The thing with Sol Ruca is I think that obviously she's super athletically talented. And I think that they let her use a gimmick that feels authentic to who she is. I think with some of these folks in NXT, I will say, particularly the people that did not come from a wrestling background, like some of the people that were signed as college athletes, I think the one thing that some of these folks are missing, and they'll get more of it over time, I'm sure, is letting us know in their promos who they are and giving us a real, because we can see like with the Sol Ruca character, we can see she's like this beachy surfer girl, skater girl. She's a little edgy.
Yeah.
We can see all of that. I get all of that when I'm looking at her Instagram. I get all of that. But I think for some of these folks, the one thing that's sort of missing at this level that they'll continue to improve upon over time is when they're cutting a promo, how can they let me know that that is their character and convey it effectively in a promo that not only gets across who they are, but then also calls out their opponent or whoever it is, whether it's just like they're putting the whole roster on notice, whoever it is that they're calling out, doing that in an effective way. Let's say you have a minute and a half to get your name in, get your moniker in, let me know why I should care about you and who are you calling out?
Yeah. And sometimes less is more too. I think that the less time Marina Shafir is on the mic, the better she looks. because I think that her direction needs to be, she needs to be kind of that, almost like Hook was before Hook started really cutting promos. She
Yeah.
just needs to like step back and just be this, like, just stand there and
A
stare at the
little
camera.
Brock Lesnar.
Yes. I was thinking, and I was thinking, or I was thinking that's like some of these characters don't need to say as much, and then some of them, they can cut a promo from the heart. But that's, again, we sense the fakeness. We know when it's fake. We know when you're really not a skater, but you put your hat backwards and try to look like Sky Blue. We know when we're like, I mean, is that really you? I don't know. But I mean, but it's authenticity, I think, is something that can really elevate people to the next level. And Kaylani is she's the current champion. But again, let me ask you this question: do you prefer titles to be held by baby faces, or do you like it better when a heel has the title and the baby faces are in pursuit? Which do you enjoy more, or does it depend on the story, really?
I think it depends on the story, because now I'm going through scenarios in my head right now. I'm thinking of specific people with specific titles, and I think it depends on the scenario and the person, because I think that both of them can be good. I mean, I think that it might be a little easier if you have a heel holding a title and the whole story is like the baby face in pursuit of the title. If I'm thinking about it, like if I'm booking a show, I mean, that might be an easier story to get over with people, other than like the baby face, everyone loves the champion, I'm a fighting champion, this and that, I put my title on the line at every show. I mean, I guess that can be fun in its own way too, in the sense that you when you have someone like that who is touting themselves as a good guy, you have them touting themselves as a fighting champion, you get a lot of high quality championship matches.
Yes. You get Swerve versus Osprey, or you get you get Thunder versus Tony Storm. You get all these.
Oh yes, I think that it depends. I mean, I think having a heel champion from a booking standpoint might be a little bit easier, but I think it depends on the person. Like, I'm thinking about like when MJF was the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, he's obviously a great heel.
He was our scumbag, though. Yeah,
he's our scumbag, but we also kind of love him. So I'm kind of going through different scenarios in my head. I mean, when John Moxley was the champion, it was like he was the baby face, but then he also had kind of like heelish tendencies at certain points in time. Like when
Moxley walks that line, he's heel and baby face. He's kind of both. Like, you got to admit, when Jericho was the first champion, being such a heel,
I love that.
Say thank you. That was tremendous. They announced last night on Dynamite that there's going to be a men's blood and guts, blood and guts war games type style match, and Sky Blue retweeted this with her eyes like this, and it got a lot of people scratching their heads after the Sky Blue. I don't know if you saw the Sky Blue Willow no DQ match.
Yes,
it got a lot of people asking. It really started a buzz about, are the women ready for? Is the women's locker room in AEW? Are we all ready for a women's blood and guts match? How would you book it? And why is there a stigma when it comes to the more violent matches? You've got Hangman drinking Swerve's blood. You've got, Moxley bleeding when he walks out into the ring. You've got all these things going on, and yet it almost seems like they hesitate when it comes to these kind of matches for women. Are we at a point now where it's time to pull the trigger and let's have a women's blood and guts match?
Well, I will say, I think that the women in AEW are ready. I think the women in AEW have had quite the repertoire, actually, of hardcore matches, no DQ matches. If we look at the match, you mentioned Thunder Rosa. If we look a couple of years back at the match between Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker, we look at Ty J, they've been in their fair share of
versus
of
the Bunny
hardcore.
and Penelope.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Willow Nightingale, another one, she's been in her fair share at this point. I think if anything, this is like a particularly badass roster. Ooh, Team Thunder Rosa versus Team Diana.
Ooh, I like that. Courtney, I like that.
Oh man, I think I think these women could definitely handle it. I think from a booking standpoint, sometimes you need, not for men and women.
Yeah.
I think that you need to be careful in terms of sort of like strategically booking matches like this, because I think that if you're catering to the general public and sort of like the broader sports entertainment audience, I think that you want to have them booked in a strategic manner so that they feel important. You're booking them at important events, and it's not like something that's just happening on TV every other week, partially because it takes away a little bit of the novelty of it, and partially because like you don't want to burn people out either. You want to make sure that your people are safe and they're taking well calculated risks in their matches.
I'm going to put this up again because I'm just going to keep this up here because that's another valid point, Julie.
Well calculated is the risk to the risk and the reward balance.
Yeah, because you don't want to take out your thoroughbred horses on a hardcore match. Yeah, a long time ago I asked Eddie Kingston, should there be a hardcore title in AEW, and he said no. He said the hardcore matches, that's for those blow off matches. That's when you're raising the stakes, and you're gonna have the law of diminishing returns when you have too much of that. Plus, one of my biggest complaints at WWE was they have Hell in a Cell, or they had Extreme Rules. It's like you're almost making these matches just for the sake of having Extreme Rules.
Yeah.
Now, granted, blood and guts, you know what you're getting into, but I think that's if you use it sparingly, it means a lot more. But there's got to be a story behind it.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree?
I agree with that too. And so I think this goes for both the men and the women.
Yeah.
If you're doing a match like that and you really want it to be worth it, you need to go into it with a very strong story and something cool that you can do too, especially with the women, where we have kind of like a number of not smaller stories, but you have a number of individual stories, let's say,
that you can bring together. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can find a way to sort of culminate those into one. I
thought they were going to do that with the Outcasts and the OG AEW. Like they had that, ready to go, and they can still build something. I do like Courtney's idea of Team Thunder versus Team Diana.
I do too, because you have two locker room leaders right there. Yep. And I mean, we've seen Thunder Rosa is not afraid to throw down.
Not at all.
Not afraid to throw down. That's one thing that I absolutely love about her. And they're both, like we said, locker room leaders. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I love. Ooh, one thing that I love especially about the AEW women's roster right now. I feel like we have a lot of experienced women coming in. We have we're developing a nice balance of experienced women and women who are newer to being on national TV. We're finally getting like that sweet spot, that mix that like I've been hoping for so long. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface really in terms of possible matchups and feuds and stories that we're able to do with a lot of these women. Like, I mean, think about the fact that we have Mercedes and Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker and like all of these women, a lot of these women that have either crossed paths on the indies or haven't crossed paths before much at all in the capacity that like we've really been able to watch. We finally have all of these different women. Soraya, we finally have them all in one place. And I feel like there's a lot of new and interesting things that we could do.
It's just like when Adam Copeland came over, everybody's like, oh, now we're going to get him versus Kenny, him versus this. You go in the list. If a Rebecca Quinn shows up in a few months, Imagine her Rebecca Quinn and going up against Thunder, or a lot of these
Yeah.
different and just all of the booking is great. One of the things I really like about AEW is it gives you that opportunity to have another platform for these matches to take place, and I'm excited. I think you're absolutely right, and it's been a process, and with the people coming back from injury, Hayter coming back.
That's going to be huge when she comes back. That's going to change a lot.
Oh, they're going to strap a rocket and send her to Wembley. There's going to be some big moment. That's going to be a huge pop when she comes back. I know.
It feels like it's been forever. I miss her so much.
They're waiting for it. Plus, they have a couple, I think, already signed, some notable, like Megan Bain and Camille Brickhouse. I think they're officially signed with AEW. They're just waiting for creative, or they're waiting for the right moment or something. And so when that happens, I mean, Megan Bain, she is an Amazon. She comes walking in.
Stacked roster pretty soon. And you know what? One thing that I want to circle back to really quickly is I feel like in the early days of AEW, they had a very small women's division. Something that we were talking about before is like negativity on the internet and on social media and whatnot. And I remember like when AEW first started, they had a pretty small women's division, which in fairness, it's a new company and they're trying to show people what they're about in order to get people on board and get people to believe in what they're doing. Yeah. And so now I feel like they're starting to get to a point where like we've said, they've got Mercedes coming in and they've got Camille Brickhouse and they've got like big names from other places. But then we also have people like Sky Blue, who came from the independent scene, or Mariah May, who's somebody that I've been following for years on the independent scene. And they're finally getting all these names together. And I see these comments on social media sometimes where it's like, when they bring in a Mercedes, they bring in a big name. It's like, oh, they're bringing in ex-WWE people. But then when they bring in a Mariah May, somebody from the independent scene that hasn't been on TV, I see comments saying, who's that? And I'm like, what do you people want?
Google is the thing.
Get one or the other or both, but like, stop complaining about all of them.
you are either purposely trying to be a troll, or you are ignorant, because, and I mean, I hate to say, I'm not trying to be negative about it, but it baffles me when they had Vikingo show up to take on Kenny Omega, and everybody's like, who? I'm like, who? Google is a thing. Go to YouTube, look up Vikingo, and you'll know why this is a huge deal. I mean, I understand sometimes that there should be it'd be nice to have like an intro package. Be nice to have some kind of thing. And I think one of the things that AEW has struggled is sometimes with the debuts. But what AEW does great is taking those talents and evolving them. I mean, look where Tony Storm is now. When Juice Robinson first showed up, I couldn't stand him. I knew who he was, but good God, is he the best? He's Juice Robinson. Rock hard, are you?
And I will say, I think that some people, they've maybe learned and they've done better with. Like, I've been following Mariah May for a number of years because she's been very active on social media for a number of years. I actually remember attending WrestleMania, was it 34, if I remember correctly, in New Orleans?
It was 30. I think 33 was in, 34 Orlando? May have been,
I went to the one in Orlando. The following year, I went to the one in New Orleans, which was 2017. And I remember I was at Fan Access. Mariah May was also there as a fan at Fan Access at WrestleMania. And then I remember connecting with her on social media afterwards because look where Julia Hart is now. Courtney Holland makes a great point. But I've been following Mariah for years, from when she was just starting out and training to breaking into the indies, to going to Japan, to then coming over to AEW. And so I very well knew who she was. And if you're active on Instagram, there's a fairly good chance that you might have at least come across her in passing. And so I think she's somebody that they've done a very good job with, because they saw her star power and they stuck her into a story that over time has built up more and more and more meaning. They found a place for her where she belonged right away,
Yeah.
and have effectively built off of that. So I feel like that's a good example of somebody that they have signed and they found a place where she fit pretty quickly and capitalized off of that, as opposed to like signing someone and then kind of having them on TV, kind of not having them on TV. But if we can develop like more consistency over time, which maybe that's a good thing why they're not debuting Camille or why they're not debuting Megan Bain right away, to make sure that we have the right story in place for them. We have the right spot in place for them where we want them to fit and thrive before just throwing them on TV.
I think Megan Bain, if she's willing to drop the Greek goddess gimmick and just be Megan Bain, I think she would be a great third addition to Saraya and Harley Cameron, and she doesn't need to cut a promo. She's the muscle.
She's just like the heater. Yeah.
I can imagine, okay, Saraya, Harley Cameron in a tag match against, feud with so-and-so, and they're fighting, and all of a sudden Megan Bain comes out and just beats the living daylights out of the baby faces, and now you've got this trio. I think, to me, that would be solid. And you're absolutely right. I hope that's what they're doing. They're waiting for that best foot forward. And you look at presentation. You look at what they're doing in Ring of Honor with Athena and Billy Starks. The presentation is so huge, and I hope that, because you're right, because when AEW started, there were a lot of independent female wrestlers that nobody really knew, whereas AEW had the men's division had an advantage of having a Jericho, having some of these names. I mean, Cody Rhodes, Shawn Spears. These are people, the former Ty Dillinger, people knew who these people were. There wasn't that you didn't have the female equivalent of a Jericho or a Moxley or somebody to start out. But now, I mean, we have Mercedes Moné. I mean, you could argue Britt Baker got over. Thunder Rosa, definitely.
Yes.
The Thunder Army is very, very.
We're strong.
Definitely Thunder Army, 100%. But I want to really quickly just jump. I mean, because I could spend another hour with you on that, and I'd love to get your thoughts more. But really quickly, Nikki Bella is going to be one of the cast members of the next episode of the season of Traitors, which is kind of like a Survivor Big Brother kind of reality show. It's where one by one there's three of them that are the traitors, and they get to kill people, not really kill them, but evict them. And so she's going to be in it. And I love that she's still kind of getting in the spotlight. Do you think we might see at least one of the Bellas come back into the ring at some point, or do you think it's done for them?
It's hard to say. I have mixed thoughts because they're so successful with all of these other businesses that they're running that I don't know that unless they like really have the itch themselves to get back into the ring, I don't know that they like quote unquote need to, because they already have so many other things going on. Nikki, it's hard to say just because of her neck injury. At one point it was questionable, is she ever even going to wrestle again, period. And then she did come back and she had another what I thought was a pretty fun run at the end of her time in WWE. I feel like there's been interest in the past from various interviews on both sides of both Tony Khan and the Bellas, kind of saying like, oh, like maybe we'll come back. Maybe. I think if they did, they would have to make a point to make it really mean something and like have a clear goal, maybe like a clear timeline, which I think makes sense for them also logistically, planning around like all these other businesses and projects that they have going on. I think they would want to pick like a clear timeline. What is it that we want to achieve during this specific timeline? Because they don't want to come back, especially come to a new company and kind of like carve out this really new chapter in their career without having like really valuable intent and meaning behind it. So I think if they did, they would need like a defined time frame for it to happen, and they would need to have like a solid plan in place. Like, what is there a big match that they haven't had yet? Is there someone that they haven't faced?
Yeah.
They haven't had a story yet with that they really like want to bring things full circle with. I think it needs to be very strategically thought out. It can't just be we're coming back just because we want the pop.
It's got to mean something. Now, the only way I think maybe Brie might show up to drag Bryan Danielson out of the ring and say, "You're done.
Right.
You can't get her anymore. Come on." Lastly, before we tie it out, we got to talk about June 15th, Saturday, 6 p.m. bell time, Salvation Army Mission Corps Summer Lovin'. I love the name is Summer Lovin', but there's not a whole lot of lovin' really going on in this whole thing. Too. So many banger matches. I'm looking forward to the tag match, the King Bees versus the Sisters of Destruction, Fire and Fury, aka Nova, Phoenix, Morgan Mercy. You've got Izzy Moreno, the super fan BFF turned wrestler, getting her title shot against La Princesa Tiffany Nieves.
That's going to be huge. That I'm looking forward to that.
That's going to be an incredible moment. I love Izzy to pieces, but I'm favoring Tiffany. It's going to be a struggle. I don't think it's going to be I don't see Izzy coming away with the victory, but I wouldn't be. But if she does, I'm going to be cheering. I'm going to pop anyways if she does win. It's just Tiffany is just so dominant. And
Tiffany's like on her A game right now. Like she's Mission Pro Women's Champion. We see her in OVW. She's a former OVW Women's Champion. Yep. We see her in the NWA now. With Billy Corgan, which is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Everything that he's doing over there and getting them these new TV deals, and they're working a lot of new locations. They're bringing back all of the territories. She's got a lot going for her right now. She's like on her A game right now, and I think that is going to be tough for Izzy. But Izzy has a lot of heart. She has a lot of
never
heart.
underestimate heart.
She's been manifesting this for herself really for a number of years. So
she's got a great story, all the way. I hope that eventually she does get that match with Mercedes, and I think that, to circle back to Mercedes grabbing her bow when she's a little girl, we have to talk about though, and there's questions as if Thunder Rosa is even going to be able to be allowed on the premises after the horrible attack. This is hot off the press. Is Thunder Rosa was a guest on A League of Her Own with the general manager of Mission Pro Wrestling, Carolina Teague, and she viciously attacked her with roses. But still, Thunder Rosa hitting you with anything, it's going to come with some bite to it. And viciously attacked her. You can see Carolina, the results there, and it was out of control. And so there's been rumors, it's not confirmed. There's rumors that Carolina might be seeking some kind of legal injunction on Thunder Rosa. And I don't know if there's going to be a restraining order of some kind or whatever, but this has been really heated. It's possible we could actually see some kind of like civil war breaking up in the Mission Pro, where we have Thunder Rosa, people that side with Thunder Rosa and people side with Carolina.
Well, I was going to say, Brian Cervantes, if you're watching this, you got to lawyer up, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Because Thunder's out of pocket on this one.
Ugly.
But Brian did say that he has secured a private jet for a mystery guest that's supposed to arrive on Saturday. He's been very, very close to the chest about who this is, but the rumors are this is somebody that we all will recognize and he said that it's somebody that will really rock the foundations of Mission Pro when they arrive. So this special jet is again, this is all rumor,
Oh, yeah, you got
speculation.
the picture of the
Yeah,
jet.
that I just had to put something there just to kind of.
Love it.
But I do think it's going to be. This is going to be an event not to miss. It's Summer 11. There's all kinds of bangers. There's so many things to look forward to. By the way, check out Emily May's recap show on Tuesday where she went over all the matches. But this is something I'm looking forward to. It's going to be a great event. There's going to be all kinds of stuff, all kinds of surprises are in store. I'm looking forward to it. I am also looking forward to chatting with you again, Julie. I've been trying to get a co-host on this show, so maybe I might see. Maybe if you want to periodically pop on with me and mark out about wrestling again.
Absolutely. I would love to be back. This was a great time. Thank you. You
Yeah.
get a picture of the exact
I have
thing.
my ways. I have my sources, Brent. I have my sources.
Thank you so much again for having me, and a huge thank you to Mission Pro, not only for having me on the show, but for doing what I think is a really top tier job of spotlighting women's wrestling and spotlighting different names and different up and coming talents. You guys clearly have an eye for talents, because I know we had mentioned, for example, Ren Sinclair was someone who had appeared with Mission Pro previously, who is now signed to NXT, and she is an absolute firecracker in the ring. Her ring work, I was super impressed by when I watched her. And like we said, we talked about some of the other names that we see on your shows. A lot of women from all over the country that are doing really important things right now. So
yes, absolutely. Well, Julie, it's been fantastic. You got to go to the Crown Jewels on Instagram. The most captivating woman in the world. She makes JR go, "Bug on!" And absolutely, thank you so much, Julie. Everybody, for Julie Cutler. No relation to Brandon Cutler, right? By the way, no relation.
No, we might be like we're third cousin,
like third cousin or something. Gotcha. Yeah. Anyways, check out, go follow her on Instagram and keep up with all the nails, the food, and all the cool adventures they're going on there. Looking forward to marking out with everybody again next Thursday, 7:30. This has been awesome. For Julie, I'm Mindrunner, and we'll see you next time. And check out Dynamite Download in 5 minutes on the Dynamite Download channel.